Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. My name is Holly, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, like I said, my name is Holly and I'm a food and fitness content creator. So for today's video, I thought I would just have a little sit down. This isn't going to be the longest video in the world, but basically what I wanted to do is just sit down with you guys and kind of talk through 6 tips and like things that I did throughout my fitness journey that I found extremely beneficial, and I don't think if I hadn't have done them, I would have got from A to be. I used to watch these videos all the time, like when I was like starting off my fitness journey, when I was like a very beginner, and I found them really useful. I did also find a lot of them kind of gave very generic tips like make sure you're drinking water, which I'm not saying isn't important, that is obviously very important, but I tried to think of 6 more unique things, maybe tips and tricks that I kind of use that aren't widely used, if that makes sense, and just like some mentality changes that I kind of did in order to achieve my goals basically. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump straight into it. Like I said, this isn't going to be a massively long video. I am going to obviously go into all of the tips, but if you do have any questions, just leave them in the comment box below and I'll be replying to all the comments as per usual. Also, if any hair extensions start popping out in the middle of this video, I am sorry. My hair is definitely due for a refit, so I'm getting some little like spiky bits. So I've tried to like smooth it down as much as possible because nobody needs to see that. I've got my little notepad here. I say notepad, like I've written like an essay for this because I did actually try and start this video yesterday. Shock, Holly's having to redo her video. And I just felt like I was getting a bit muddled with my words, and I just want this to be really like short, concise and to the point, and not dance around the subject like I'm doing right now. So anyway, let's jump into it. Tip number 1 is volume eating. So I still practice volume eating, but specifically used it a lot during my deficit and weight loss phase. And what I mean by volume eating is maximizing and getting the most out of your calories. So for example, not throwing away your calories on high calorie foods that you can't necessarily fit in. You kind of have to look at your deficit and look at the calories you're given and be smart about what you allocate those calories to. So for example, it's not going to be very smart to be allocating a large chunk of calories to a big bagel when you could just have a bagel thin, so you're still kind of satisfying that craving of a bagel, but you're saving calories for extra food in the day by having that bagel thin. I used to kind of think of this as like finding little loopholes in your deficit and finding little cheats in order to save calories but still enjoy the foods that you like. Oh, another way to do this is, for example, if you love a chocolate bar in the evening, make a slightly smarter choice in your calorie deficit to not be eating that 250 calorie chocolate bar, but instead satisfy your craving with a pack of like 100 calorie Maryland mini cookies. This is something that I still do just in order to get the most out of my calories and make sure that I'm eating more in the day and not throwing away my calories on foods that, yeah, are really nice, but they're only going to give me short satisfaction and a short feeling of being full. Whereas I could save those calories, distribute them between different meals and keep myself fuller for longer. I hope that makes sense. It's one of those things that makes a lot of sense in my head, and I hope that when I'm saying it out loud, it also makes sense. So the second thing that people talk about when they use the term volume eating is packing your food out with veg. So veg is obviously very low calorie. This is something that I still do just to make my meals filled with volume and really, really filling throughout the day. So by packing your meals with something like peppers and mushrooms, those foods are so low in calorie. However, the volume of them is so high, like they're quite large, they're quite substantial, they fill you up a lot. So by eating those alongside other foods, you're going to be filling yourself up, having these massive portions of food, but you're not going to be using ridiculous amounts of calories to do it. A really good example of a way I used to do this was every time I'd make scrambled eggs, I would also cut up half a pepper and a few mushrooms and I'd fry them in with the scrambled egg, and it just makes the scrambled egg literally go from like this to like this, and you feel so much fuller, especially because like you're eating a bigger plate of food, so mentally as well, your body feels like it's eating a lot more, but the calories probably aren't very different from just eating 2 eggs by themselves. Into tip number 2. Tip number 2 is to get rid of comparisons. And I know this one does sound slightly generic, however, it's something that I constantly like try and practice every day still, because it's so easy to slip into that place of looking online and scrolling and being like, oh, I wish I looked like so-and-so, I wish I looked like so-and-so. The way that I overcame that mainly was just to go through and go unfollow, 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 unfollow. I think it's really good to follow people for inspiration purposes and aspiration purposes. If you aspire to have someone's work ethic and their drive, that is amazing. Go for it. Look up to that person. However, if you are looking up to someone in the way that you're like, I need that body, I need to look like that, if I don't look like that when I eat this and I do this, then obviously what I'm doing isn't right. That is the kind of comparison and aspiration that you don't need in your life, because the reality of the fact is that the likelihood is that the woman that you're looking at, you will never look like, because she is her and you are you. Our bodies are completely unique to us, and by comparing yourself to someone on the internet, essentially you're just setting yourself up to fail, because the likelihood of you looking like that person exactly is zero, because we can't. We're all individual, like I said. Another reason for this, and this is something that I've kind of had to come to terms with recently, because I'm obviously trying to build muscle, so my calories are increasing, and I'm seeing all these other girls on Instagram who are like lifting and their calories are increasing. But like, I don't look like them, and I'm like, well, how are they holding their physique so well? And I feel like mine's kind of gained just a little bit more body fat, and why have they not gained any body fat? They have been training for 5 or 6 years, which means they have been working their butts off for 5 or 6 years, been in and out of bulking stages in order to get to that point. Here's me on year 1 of this journey, and I'm trying to look like somebody who's got 6 years ahead of me. The women that we aspire to look like and that we look up to on Instagram usually have been training for a good few years. So do not get disheartened by comparing yourself to somebody that is 6 years ahead of you. That just genuinely is going to be bad for your mental health. It's going to be bad for your body image, and we don't need it. So like I said, if you ever find yourself scrolling through Instagram and just going, oh, I wish I looked like her, I wish I looked like her, and you're looking at people for the wrong reasons, just give them an unfollow. Then when you go on Instagram, you're not going to have any of that on your feed. You're not going to be constantly comparing yourself to people. And I think it just creates a much safer space on your social media for you as well, to kind of grow in yourself and feel good in your own skin. That is actually something that I did when I started my fitness account. I was very conscious not to go ahead and just follow all these other fitness accounts, because I knew that if I kind of got caught up in that comparison cycle and that toxic cycle of being like, oh, I wish I looked like her, I wish I looked like her, why don't I look like her? It wouldn't have been good for me, it wouldn't have been good for my journey or for my mental health. So that is something that I did do. And now when I follow women and I aspire to be like them, it's more because of their work ethic, how hard they work in their training, because they wake up at 6 a.m. to like get everything done in the day. Like, I aspire to have their habits rather than their physique and their figure. So yeah, like I said, unfollow. You don't need to see it if it's not going to be beneficial to you. Tip number 3 is honor your cravings. I cannot stress this one enough. If you sit there and think about every diet that you've ever failed in the past, the likelihood is that you went on this extreme diet where you cut out chocolate, bread, red meat, all these kind of like random things that sometimes on the internet they say, if you cut this out, it's going to make you lose X amount of weight, when it never does. If you have been on one of those diets and you've cut stuff out, the likelihood is you burn yourself out and your body craves those things so much that you go through this cycle of restriction and then overindulging and kind of falling off the bandwagon, and then it kind of starts the process of like self-loathing and self-hating. And that was something that I experienced for a really long time, and the way to snap out of that and keep your diet as sustainable and happy as possible is to incorporate your cravings into your diet. What I mean by incorporating your cravings is finding a way to fit them into your deficit in a way that means that they don't have to be cut out completely. So like I said earlier, with including like a little bag of Maryland mini chocolate cookies in the evening, if you know that you're going to be craving something sweet throughout the day, or even like midday, just pop them in the middle of the day. Do not cut them out completely, because then you're going to be hating your diet. Like I said, it's not going to be sustainable. Another thing you can do is fakeaways. So I absolutely love a fakeaway. If you are somebody that every Friday wants a chippy, the best thing you can start doing is making your own chippies. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not gonna be a fish and chips like it is from down the road, but it's gonna be a healthier version that kind of nips that craving in the bud and keeps you ticking over and keeps you going. Doing little things like that really helped me throughout my whole fitness journey. I just think it's so important to honor our cravings, because that's something that our body wants and it's something that we enjoy. So never cut out anything that you enjoy, just find a healthier way to incorporate it and balance it into your lifestyle, basically. So tip number 4 for you guys is consistency. Yeah, I know the word consistency kind of gets thrown around a lot and everybody says, oh, you have to be consistent. But what does that actually mean? Like, what does it mean to be consistent? That basically means that you need to be hitting your diet and hitting your exercise week in, week out. And me saying that can be really like, oh God, but I find that really difficult. And I completely get that. Like, it took me a good few months to nail down the consistency and to kind of stick on track. So I kind of want to talk to you guys about how I nail consistency and why it's so important. So the way that I kind of used to get my head around nailing my consistency is I would just start one day at a time. A lot of the time in my previous like dieting phases, like pre where we are now, more like toxic dieting phase, I'd be like, right, I have a night out at the end of the month. So for the rest of the month, I'm gonna train really hard every single day. I'm not gonna go off my diet once. I'm not gonna eat any chocolate. I'm not gonna do anything for 4 weeks. But how overwhelming is that? Oh, for 4 weeks, I'm gonna stick to this exact plan. You don't need to be thinking that far ahead. What you need to do is kind of sit yourself down and tick off a day. That's how I always used to think about it. I used to think, right, we're gonna do this one day at a time, because when you have one day and you kind of go through and you tick all the boxes and you tick off your nutrition, you tick off your water intake, you tick off your steps and your exercise, you've done a day. So you know you can do it. So then the next day you go, okay, I already did that yesterday. So now we're gonna focus on day 2 and we're gonna smash day 2. And then by day 2, it's day 3. And then I kind of used to get into my head and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna stay on track now because I've done these days so well. I know how to do it. I know I'm capable of having a whole day on track. Now I'm gonna focus on getting a whole week ticked off. Then you can do 2 weeks, then 3 weeks. I know the word consistency can be quite overwhelming because people say it and then people think like, oh God, so I have to be like on point for 6 months straight. No, like I said, take one day at a time. That's how I kind of learned to nail my consistency and how I built it up over time. The next reason why consistency is so important, and this is why it just appeals to me so much, is because if you are able to be consistent and stay on track with your diet and your nutrition and your exercise, then the world is your oyster. I now can go on a night out with all my friends, enjoy a big meal, enjoy loads of drinks, because I know that I have nailed my consistency, and I know that from that day, the next day, I'm just gonna get straight back on track and nail it for the next week. And I think that used to stress me out a lot with social occasions, is because I'd go and I'd be like, oh God, is this gonna start a spiral? But if you know that you are able to be consistent and able to just jump straight back on the bandwagon, then trust me, it will make your stress around social situations so much lighter. You just feel so much better about going to them, knowing that the next day you're literally going to jump straight back on track. Another thing that I always say as well is that consistency really is key. You do need to be nailing it. It's not about what you do some of the time, but it's about what you do the majority of the time. And if you're being consistent day in, day out, and you're sticking to your calories, even if you do then go out on the weekend and you have a cheeky meal out and a few drinks, that's just some of the time. So it's not actually going to have an effect on what you're doing the majority of the time. And I think that's just quite a good way to look at consistency, because I think a lot of the time people do think, oh my God, so it means I have to be like 24/7 on it. And it doesn't at all. Like, you're allowed days off, like you're allowed a weekend off, but just know that if you are being consistent, and you can be consistent, jump straight back into it the next day and start nailing it all over again. Number 5 is structure. So I spoke about this on my Sunday vlog and kind of showed you guys how I structure my week. This is also something that feeds into consistency massively. If you're structuring out your exercise and your nutrition before the week begins, the likelihood of you falling off track is very slim. And like I mentioned in my Sunday vlog, if you are then falling off track, it is just you being a bit naughty. So what I do in order to structure my weeks and make sure that I'm staying on track all the time is that I pre-plan in all of my exercise for the week. So on a Sunday, I'll look at my social calendar for the week, I'll look at my work I've got, and I will fit my exercise around everything that currently exists, knowing that I can do it on those days and fit it in on those days. So then when it gets to that day, I have absolutely zero excuses, because I've specifically put the workout in at that time on that day for that reason, and I know there's no reason for me not to be hitting it and doing it. And then obviously structuring your meals as well, which is something that I talk about all the time, probably go on about it so much. But by organizing and structuring your meals for the week and setting out your nutrition, you know that you're not going to be falling off track. Like I've just said, put in all of your nutrition, put in all of your exercise. What's to stop you like achieving your goals then? Like, the only person would be you, but you've put in all this work to structure all of these things. So what is going to make you fall off track? Like, if you've done that, then you've got this. Like, that's what I always think. If I've got everything planned to a T, I've got a bulletproof plan to reach my goals. And that's, I think, my favorite way to think about it. And finally, tip number 6, I feel like we have literally whizzed through these, is that your fitness journey is a marathon, not a sprint. I feel like, again, this is probably something that I sound like a broken record talking about. The best thing I ever did in my journey was to stop thinking about how I was going to look in 4 weeks and actually start thinking about how I was going to look in 4 months. If you want it to be a journey and if you want it to be a lifestyle and you want it to be sustainable, that needs to happen over a longer period of time. And I understand that when you're kind of in a place and you want to see results quickly, that can be a bit frustrating and you do just want the instant results. However, those instant results normally come along with restrictive dieting, over-exercising, and just generally not having a very good time. So by looking into the long term, creating a more sustainable weight loss plan for yourself, you're going to be enjoying it more because you're going to be able to incorporate things you love, like snacks and chocolate, and even like nights out with your friends and meals out. Also, the best thing about a fitness journey taking a really long period of time is how much you learn through it. Like, I've been on my fitness journey for 2 years now, and the amount that I've learned and fallen in love with fitness over it is just insane. Like, I'm even studying to become a PT now because I've fallen so in love with the process and I've fallen so in love with fitness and working out and exercising, and that never would have happened if I bought a 4-week shred plan and put myself through hell for 4 weeks. That would have put me on a miserable diet, probably would have been hungry all the time, would have been grumpy, not fun to hang around with, probably would have missed social occasions with my friends because it wouldn't have incorporated that. I definitely feel like changing my mindset from short term to long term was one of the things that kept me going throughout my fitness journey. So if you are able to kind of flick that switch in your head, I would definitely recommend trying to look at it in that way and trying not to focus on, like I said, the short-term results. I hope those tips and tricks have been of use to you guys. Those are probably like the 6 main like little mindset changes and habit changes that I made throughout my fitness journey that I feel like did really get me to this point. I feel like I have just like word vomited on you all basically in this video, but I wanted it to be quite like short and to the point and not be around the bush too much. Like I said, if you have any questions or anything, just leave a comment below, and obviously if you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and a subscribe. Also, I do have a vlog coming next week. I'm going to be filming a kind of day in the life of like me, like what I do like day to day, just like a day in the life of like a content creator, like brand work, some fun things like that. And I'm going to take you to the gym with me as well and obviously show you what I'm cooking. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that, and thank you so much for watching.